everybody. Welcome back to the Dual Screens Crossplay Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Fontana, and with me is Corey. How you doing, Corey?
Not bad. You know, just coming back from another week of work, so it's nice to be home and be able to game a bit and get things settled and done and get ready to go out for another week.
We have probably the most jam-packed news section in a long time. We are going to be talking about the GameStop chief financial officer is stepping down. God of War got a release date. We have games getting delayed. We have new information on next gen or current gen console releases of last gen games. Changes coming to Xbox games with gold, all kinds of news here on the Dual Screens Crossplay Podcast, the internet's #1 gaming news podcast you've never listened to or watched, probably. Ladies and gentlemen, the show posts each and every week for your listening pleasure on your podcast service of choice. Just search Dual Screens Crossplay Podcast or Crossplay Podcast. We'll show up. You'll see it. You'll see it. It's by Dual Screens. You'll know exactly what you're when you find it. You know what I mean? Or you could watch us live on twitch.tv/dualscreenstreams every week when we record the show. I am your filler host this week. I'm returning after about a month and a half. Taylar is out of town, but he will resume hosting duties next week. So just bear with me as I did not have access to the new formatted docs. So I am flying by muscle memory and our Discord. So that's how I'm doing this week. If you want to support us on Patreon, it's so easy. A baby can do it, and a baby does do it. 2 babies, actually. Our Patreon producers, Colton the Apprentice Nestler and FNH Paul. Just go to patreon.com/dualscreens, and you can support us for as little as $1 and get all up inside our VIP Discord. Ain't that right, Corey?
Yep. I mean, that's the place where, like you said yourself, where all of our news comes from, all the things we get to talk about. Like we talk about it on the show, but I mean, this is where we get to talk with a lot of our fans and their opinions on a lot of this stuff, and it's real fun and exciting stuff.
And game developers.
Exactly.
We get to have game developers in there giving us unique perspectives on news and reports coming out of the world. And we have one very active one, Josh, former guest of the show, which all of our developer friends in our Discord are former guests of the show. So of the Dual Screens Podcast, which of course is our other podcast. And of course you could also check out our new indie news podcast, Indies Nuts Podcast. So yeah, search for all of those on your podcast service and youtube.com/dualscreenstv. Let's go over what is coming out this week. I don't know where Taylar stopped last episode, so I'm going to start with July 1st, and I'm going to end on July 5th, and I'm going to end on July 13th. So
there we go.
Well, that's where we're going to go. So we have Arcade-ageddon coming to PlayStation 5, Series X and S, PlayStation 4, and PC on July 5th. July 7th has Gwent Rogue Mage on PC, iOS, and Android. Also on the 7th, we have Matchpoint coming to PlayStation 5, Series XS, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. On July 8th, you have Klonoa Fantasy Reverie Series. Those are 4 words that were smashed together and tell us nothing.
Yep.
Fantasy spelled with a PH. That is coming to PlayStation 5, Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Also on the 8th, we have Madison coming to, which is, I believe, a former guest of the show. Yeah, Madison.
Yeah.
PlayStation 5. We have interviewed so many people, I lose track of everything. PS5, Series X and S, PS4, Switch, and PC. And on the 12th, we have Time on Frog Island, which looks awesome. And that comes to PS5, Series XS, PS4, One, Switch, and PC on the 12th. And finally, Loopmancer coming to the PC on July 13th. But that is enough of what's coming. What the hell are we playing now? You know what I mean? You were at sea, so I don't imagine you were playing much.
Well, I do. I usually bring out my Switch with me if I do
Mm-hmm.
play anything. It's all about the Switch.
Yep.
But usually I'm just catching up on games that people played multiple years ago. So like
Sure.
the
Sure.
Mario All Star Collection, I would started playing again. Puzzle Quest, I pick that up every periodically. But once I get home, I usually dive right into it. So I did get home on Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month, and everyone knows that what that means is that we get our PS Plus games for the month. This month we got Crash Bandicoot 4 and Arcadium or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, yeah, whatever it's called, as our PS
Arcade-ageddon.
Plus. Yeah, Carbon Arcade. And both those games came out, and I played both of them. Actually, surprisingly, Arcade Get 'em, bruh, is actually what I've played more than Crash.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually quite an interesting game. I thought it was going to be just another, basically just here's a different version of another shooter, basically. And I'm like, cool, I'll try it out, see how good it is, uninstall it later. But what they've really done is it's kind of there's the neat perspective of it is there isn't a full single player adventure mode that you can team up with 3 of your buddies to play.
Mm.
You can also there's also a battle mode, which is only 4 people, which surprises me for being in this day and age, especially like everyone's going battle royale or like you get 32 versus 32. Like it's all about these big matches. And what they've done in this is it's all about it's 4 people against each other, and it's all mini games. So it's Steve, I don't know if you ever played Fusion Frenzy on the original Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
If you or any Mario Party game, that's
Yeah.
basically
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
this is. It's the idea that every time you jump into a multiplayer match, it's 4 people, and then there's 8 matches you play. They last, I think it's anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes per match, and it's everything from King of the Hill, Capture and Defend. There's a soccer, like a basketball kind of mode where there's a ball and you have to score goals with it, and it puts 2 people on teams. And then there's modes where it's not you rockets only. There's maybe not just killing each other, but it might be have like enemies in the map as well, and you get points for killing them. There's another mode where you're put on top of a giant bunch of blocks, and then you have to shoot the blocks out and try to make everybody else fall through the layers and then fall to their doom, and you have to be the last one standing. And then at the end of every match, you get points based on where you ranked in that match. And then at the end of 8 games, it's whoever has the highest amount of points wins the match. So it's
Yeah.
neat
That's
how
fun.
it just because it's constantly changing. It's you're never knowing what you're gonna do. And with that as well as everyone's kind of on the same level.
Yeah.
So it's not like just because you've played the game more doesn't mean that I'm not going to I'm going to be down on it.
Because you could have a specialty or a game you're really good at, and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If it's rockets only, everyone has the same rocket launcher. Everyone has it's the same map. Who knows what it is, right? So it's really neat in that aspect. And plus, because some matches are teams, some matches are everyone for themselves. It really throws that little loop in there too, as well, where I might be partnered with you for one match, and then the next match I might be partnered with Andy and against you. So there's no like, hey, let's work together to like always win every match. It's always going to have that fighting force. And
that's how Mario Party does it.
Yeah, and so the cool thing is too is that having a single player mode in this as well is really neat as well. So what they've done with that is every character, that's where you have the customization. So you can have customizable characters. There's loads of guns to choose from. And the way it works is as you use a gun more often, you become more proficient in it. If you get enough proficiency, you can start the match with that gun when you play the game next time, or you can get a special skin on it, or you can get it so it does a secondary attack with it. And then you have powers that you can get as well and customizing your character. And the way it works is it's the same kind of thing as the multiplayer where it jumps you into a randomly generated area and it says, okay, you have to kill this generator. Okay, cool. And
Love killing generators.
Yeah, or you have to go to a certain area and then it might be survive for a certain amount of time or survive the wave of enemies. And then as you continue through each section, the difficulty gets harder and harder and harder and harder, up to a point where I think it's like almost 100. is like what the level is. So it's crazy amount of levels.
Sounds
And
like
then
a
you
lot of
can,
fun.
yeah, and it's just a lot of fun to play with friends. So you can bring friends in with it as well. I have yet to do that, but that's definitely the way to go. And like I said, I played Crash 4 as well as my other big game. And Crash is, just a classic. I mean, it
Crash
is
is Crash, man.
Crash is
Crash is
Crash.
Crash.
And for being the free game of the month, like this is a big month for PlayStation Plus of being good games for free, for sure. So,
Indeed.
but what did you play, Steve?
I got my Steam Deck, and it works, and that's it. I don't really. I mean, I'm not playing anything that we haven't spoken about on any show, but yeah. So I really haven't been doing much in the realm of new games to really talk about. So I mean, that's it. I think I've been playing too many indie games, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm gonna jump back into what's it called? Gunfire Reborn. I'm gonna get back into that because that looks like a lot more fun, and the fact that I could play that optimized on the Steam Deck makes me very excited. So yeah, let's get into the news while you figure out your dinner situation.
There we go.
We have an insane amount to talk about. We're going to start off with something that's fairly recent. This was only a couple hours ago, as far as I recall here. The GameStop Chief Financial Officer, Mike Recupero, I think it's Recupero, is leaving. The gaming giant will lay off, quote, a number of, end quote, employees as it strives for sustained profitability, the CEO, Matt Furlong, wrote in a memo to employees. We got this article from Axios, if you want to give them a click. This is crazy because the cuts come after the company hired more than 600 workers in 2021 and the first half of 2022. Leaders are now in a better position to understand its, quote, transformation needs, he said, whatever that means. GameStop will lay off employees as its publication at its publication Game Informer as well. So you remember a couple of years ago, Game Informer got they axed half the staff basically. So that's going to get hit with more. The company will also make, quote, significant investment in store leaders and employees, which Furlong called the heart of GameStop. Basically, they are just going to ride the people who make the least amount of money the hardest, and just cut from the top and see what happens. They just bleed money. And when their stocks were manipulated, they made plenty of money off of that. All the important people, all the rich people that have say, made plenty of money off of that. And now it's time to recuperate and, right the ship as far as finances go. And of course, the people who suffer are the workers and the people that are on the front lines. Ugh, sorry, it's getting more comfortable here in my seat. The people on the front lines. That's always who suffers in this. The CFO, I'm sure, made plenty of millions of dollars throughout all of these losses. And it sucks. GameStop is a terribly run company. Terribly run. And I don't know how much more evidence we need of that at this point. This is beyond beating a dead horse. This is like finding the oil 64 million years later from the dead horse's carcasses. That's what this is at this point. It's awful.
Well, and especially as of yesterday too, with the GameStop, it's really weird that basically they announced yesterday that they're going to do what's called a 4-for-1 split of video game retailer assets as well for stock. So they basically came out there, went, here, everybody can join in, get stock at a cheaper price. You can split a stock and blah, blah, to basically boost their stock numbers. And then with that, they do this announcement, which cuts all the top off. And then, they're seeing a huge increase in their stock as well because of that. Now, I mean, maybe this could be a good turning point to start putting power into the people that are on the front line and give them more support. But I mean, from what we've seen before, that doesn't usually happen in these types of scenarios. So, I mean, hopefully we do see that change. I mean, if they're doing what they say they're doing, then maybe the store leaders and managers will actually have more power and be able to actually do a lot more to understand the needs of their employees and give them what they need and want. But we won't see until the future for this stuff for sure.
I have never heard a good story from anyone who has ever worked at GameStop.
No, I worked for GameStop as well. I worked well at EB Games, but yeah, the same thing. And it was my experience with it was I worked one season, and it was to the point of what made me really dismiss it was at the point you have to sign a contract when you first start, especially when you're working the Christmas season that says I'm going to work Boxing Day and you have to work the entire Boxing Week and New Year's Eve, and you have to book those off, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And my grandmother was actually diagnosed with terminal cancer at that point, and it was going to be the last. The doctor said this would be the last Christmas we could spend with her. So I said, like, I'm going to do everything in my power to go see her for Christmas and be there and be here for hopefully the end of the week. I can do everything I can. And at that point, they're like, no, you're not allowed to go. If you decide to go, I'm going to fire you. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to put, that kind of precedence on my stuff when I'm trying to work as hard as I can for you, then, that's just not right. And in the end, the funny thing about it was that exact Christmas, they had a giant snowstorm in town, and no one was able to get to the store except for the manager. And for the first 3 days, no one was ever able to get there. So in the end, he was the only one at the store. So,
and I'm sure there were plenty of customers flooding in that snowstorm also.
Yeah, no. And that was the funniest part about it. So,
yeah. Oh, it was a terrible season. Yeah, whatever. Moving on, this is huge news. So we know that E3 is coming back next year, but now it looks like, I mean, it's confirmed, ReedPop, who are the organizers of the PAX conventions, as well as Star Wars Celebration, New York Comic Con, EGX, they are taking over the organization of E3. So they're going to be running E3. Let's just get a quote here from the article. Quote, it claimed it has listened to feedback from the gaming community. It meaning who?
The E3.
Yeah, E3, I guess.
Yeah.
Claims feedback to the gaming community, what always worked about the game industry event while reshaping what didn't. So it looks like they're going to focus on the good stuff while hopefully changing the not so good stuff. Quote, it is a tremendous honor and privilege for ReedPop to take on the responsibility of bringing E3 back in 2023, said Lance Fensterman, president of ReedPop. Quote, with the support and endorsement of the ESA, we're going to build a world-class event to serve the global gaming industry in new and broader ways than we already do at ReedPop through our portfolio of world-leading events and websites.
Well, the big thing I took away from reading this as well is it looks like because they're taking over, they're going to put a lot more emphasis on a in-person expo over being more of a news and journalist expo.
Right.
So it looks like they're going to be changing E3 into more of a back to what it was originally, where it was like invite everybody and get everyone to come in. And it seems like that's what they're aiming for now, instead of being like, okay, here, let's get the journalists in, and then that's it. So.
Yeah. E3, you remember when it like first started, it was electronics. Like that was the focus of it. It was where you got hardware and peripherals and a lot of that stuff. And then it slowly morphed into the software being more important. So like the software reveals sort of took over. There are 3 ways you can make it just exponentially better than it has been in the last decade. One, you have to focus on the games. Focus on the games and the people making the games, and make it a celebration of the year in gaming and what's to come and the technology and all that stuff. Focus on that. Don't focus so much on the pomp and circumstance. Don't focus so much on the pizzazz and the flashy lights and the fireworks show and all that stuff. Like, don't worry about that. Worry about ground level. What are we showing, right? The second thing is you have to lower it significantly, the barrier to entry for developers, because it costs
a big one,
tens of thousands of dollars for them to get a
Oh,
booth and go to E3.
well, it was more. I think it was like it was like when you listen to Sony, right? When Sony left E3 originally, and you hear them talk about the big reason why they left is because they figured for the amount of money it would cost them to do their 1 hour show at E3, they could do their own show and double the time and double the amount of content and double the amount of people they could get into it. And the idea that Sony being a massive company, like it costs them that much money to do
Well,
E3 that they're like, yeah,
yeah,
we can just throw our own event for
I'm
the
not
same
talking
price.
about
Like,
I'm not talking about like
oh
that
no, you're
type.
talking
I'm
about like
talking about
indie
any like a
companies.
just an
Yeah,
indie developer or just a smaller like big, whatever. Like y- going there costs like anywhere between 30 and like $100,000 for a lot of these developers, depending on how
yeah,
many people they have to fly there to work, all the stuff they have to bring. Because again, there's no like when you go to PAX is literally it's organized so well, but it's also a ragtag group of developers that come together in the indie mega booth and like slap something together in a few hours, and like
yeah,
they put their work into it, and it still costs a lot of money for them to do that as well, but like that has a much lower barrier to entry, and so you get a lot of really cool projects out of it. The other thing is they need to lower the barrier of entry to media. um they are way too stingy in the past on who gets to cover E3. um I don't know what the reason for that is. I assume it's a prestige thing. Like they want to keep it as a prestigious event that has the best of the best there covering it or whatever. But
yeah,
it's that's not gonna make money anymore. The expo scene is a money making scene, regardless
yeah,
of what you think it's supposed to be. So, E3 was a place where you're like, hey, if you got a really cool new technology that you want to show off to all of the media, like the biggest names, the Times, the whatever, the Post, like all those things, Washington Post, and you want them to get mainstream attention, you have to pay us a bunch of money. That's how they made their money. The people making the product are using their budget to market their product at our cool event. Now they're obviously going to switch to a more consumer related event where the people going to see all the pizzazz are the ones that are going to be paying and making up that lost cash for all the developers that left E3, because it just wasn't, there was no return on investment. You could do what E3 does 10 times a year for a fraction of the cost everywhere else, like your directs, your state of plays and like all that stuff. You could do all that shit like
yeah.
10 times a year.
Exactly. The only thing you couldn't do with that is like with your directs and your state of plays and stuff like that is to have that in-person experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where especially this last year, especially this first year after COVID, with a lot of the events like PAX East and PAX West and stuff being available to the public, it's crazy how much of a resurgence we've seen with the games that show up at those like PAX East. You look at some of the, like when you look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge that showed up at that conference and stuff like that. I mean, it was huge, and it gave a lot of the other games too. Anybody that was there basically got a huge boost, right? And that's the big thing is E3. It would be sad to see where you would have these smaller companies pay that huge amount of money to go, or even like some well-known middle of the road companies that would pay to go to E3, put all this money out, and then because they'd be outshined by these other big giant events. And it would be nice to see with PAX doing it, if PAX treats this more as a super PAX, like where this is like each East meets West. Let's put all the big announcements in one big giant thing, or like the here's our kind of way of doing that. But at the exact same time, if they treat this like any other PAX, it's just going to be more shows for more people to be able to show their work and stuff like that, which would be really neat to see for sure.
Yeah, it also, like, you could still have those private areas, like, PAX always has the media booths, but you could have something a little bit more special for those VIP media outlets that
Yeah,
perhaps get invited, that don't have to sign up or ask. Like there's certain areas that will get invited to, and they'll get preferred seating at you know, the any shows or events or anything like that. It needs to be it needs to be a really good mix of high quality and, you know, boots on the ground type stuff, but it also has to be a celebration of games, because that's what people do at E3 time. They celebrate gaming. It's like gaming
100%.
Christmas. That's what it is. It's like a
Yep.
season of gamers coming together and celebrating their hobby. Speaking of celebrating, I might be celebrating a new current gen version of Biomutant. A bunch of games are going to be coming to current gen, but this one excited me the most. I actually really enjoyed Biomutant, but I only played it as a good guy, so I think I'm going to replay this as a bad guy, because it's coming to PlayStation 5 and Series X/S on September 6th, and you could upgrade for free, you keep your save files, and you get native 4K 60 FPS. Booyah. So that's
excited.
good. Yeah, it's a good
I
game.
played it as well and did the exact same thing as a human. I do like the idea too. They were talking about they're not just gonna make it where it's the graphics that seem to have a huge update. From what I heard too, it's also gonna have it where a lot of they're gonna add more vibration features as well with the PS5 because of the advantage of the dual sense adaptability. And I mean, I think that this game really was a really good game and got heard. Like, a lot of people seem to like kind of like heckle this game a lot, and I think this game was great for what it was.
It was redundant. It was glitchy. Some of it was very annoying, but like I enjoyed everything that I did in that game. I never felt bored.
Nope.
And then before I knew it, it was over. It just looked like it was like, all right, guys, what are we doing now? How do we get to this boss? Just walk up to it. Okay, what happens after you beat it? I don't know. You like get something? Okay. It's like that kind of thing. The narrative isn't great.
No.
Speaking of new and improved, Corey, Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion coming this winter.
So excited.
And
I'm super excited.
Very excited. Here are some bullet points. Improved camera and character movements. Thank goodness. Optimized UI. The UI was kind of butt, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Here's a scary one. A new menu-based battle system.
I mean, yeah, that I can see.
That's just remake, right? That's just like, that's a fancy way of saying the way remake does it.
Yeah, I think it's because they're changing it, because you got to remember this was built on the PSP, so like the problem was the screen was so small you couldn't really do a lot of things to like. You had to just know your buttons, kind of idea. That was the whole problem with like if you didn't know how, like even for me, I tried going back on my PSP and playing it not too long ago, and I was like, okay, and then you're like trying to, okay, what does every button do, because I have to know the buttons to do anything. And the idea that they're changing it a little bit so that it's a little bit more easier for people to jump straight into, I'm excited for that.
And it looks gorgeous. Oh my god,
it does.
I am so excited for this.
I'm excited because it's with this being made, it kind of shows that they're really kind of they're going to bring light to this story. I think that people, when you think of Final Fantasy VII, the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is the world of Final Fantasy VII is really the only world that Square Enix is really kind of blown out. You get to learn there are so many games that people don't even know about with Final Fantasy VII, where you can learn about how basically every enemy, every hero in the game started. There were backstories on everybody, and it's kind of neat that they're remaking those games for people that don't understand. Okay, in the new remake, everyone's like, okay, well, why is everyone so excited about this random guy that shows up at some point in the game? Like, what are people talking about? Who is this? Who is this Zack character? I don't get it. Why is he so important? And it's neat that they're going to be having this game come out, especially the idea that with this coming out this winter and then the next version of remake coming out next winter, it kind of makes you wonder, what we're going to see in the next remake when it comes to involve Zach and stuff like that. So it's going to be really neat experience.
It's going to tie it all together really nicely. We're also getting new background music arrangements by Takaharu Ishimoto, and they're going to do full VO added to the scenes that were just text only in the past. So a couple of items there to note for that one. Here's a nice little bit of information. Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak got sold 2 million copies, and Rise itself 10 million in the 2 weeks that it released. 1 week, I'm sorry. 1 week since that DLC for Monster Hunter Rise came out. So 2 million, that's a big number. Congratulations to Monster Hunter fans everywhere. I hear that's a really good one. I'm not a Monster Hunter guy. I wish I was. I just can't deal with the combat. It doesn't click with me. Let's talk about more remakes. We're getting sit down for this one, folks. Lollipop Chainsaw is getting a remake for its 10th anniversary. Now, Corey, I'm going to take you down a rabbit hole, okay? So get comfortable.
Bring me. Just give me a second.
Yeah, get comfortable. Okay. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Do you know who the Angry Video Game Nerd is?
100%.
Okay.
Yes.
I feel like most people know who that is, who have been on the internet. Yes. When he started reviewing NES games,
yep,
it was when the Wii came out. So it was 2005, 2006. That's the era we're talking about. At that point, Super Mario Bros., the NES, and the games he was reviewing were 20 years old. Okay?
Yep.
At this point in time, we are approaching the Wii games that were new are going to be 20 years old soon. Okay? I want you to think about that. It has been 15 years since he started making those videos. And in 5 years, in less than 5 years, in 4 years, the Wii is going to be as old as the Nintendo was, the NES was, when the Wii came out. Okay, now I want you to think of, how the hell is Lollipop Chainsaw celebrating 10 years? And why are we getting a remake of it? It's 10 years wasn't that long ago, was it?
I mean, it's really, because if I'm correct, that's Grasshopper Games, right? Like, it surprises me that there's not a lot of other, like, the thing that shocks me about this announcement really is that there is so many other games that they have made that I feel personally have had more of a, hey, please remake this. Than that, but
this has a pretty deep cult following, though. Like it's got a weird love, because this was the game that James Gunn basically like forced down WB's throat. And like,
yeah, let's just hope that this does better than the Killer 7 remake that we had. Just let's just hope.
Let's hope indeed. All right, more remakes. Rockstar supposedly shelved plans for Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto 4 remasters, instead focusing on their newer projects. So that's an interesting reaction. And the person that broke this, I guess, said the poor reception to the trilogy definitive edition might be the reason behind the decision, which I feel like remaking or remastering or whatever PS2 games is a little different than taking PS3 games. I'm not sure about that, but honestly,
it's also it was broken when on release. So I mean, take that as a grain of salt. If you're gonna release a trilogy of games and they're broken on release, and then you complain about poor sales, I mean that's your own problem at that point. Like, it's something where, I know the people that bought the trilogy. I know love them, but at the exact same time, as soon as it got found out that it was broken, I know a lot of people that were like, "I'm just gonna wait till it gets patched or till it's $20 or you know, I'll put up with the jank when it's then, right?" And especially when the original games run better than the newer versions of them,
Yeah,
then you've got issues, right?
or pirated emulated versions ran better
Yeah,
as well. Like this was not this is not something that you would think the Rockstar name would be on, were those remakes. And honestly, I'm kind of like, okay, like I know that
yeah.
Red Dead Redemption is great. Like it's a phenomenal video game. It doesn't move the needle like a GTA. So the other news that came
No.
out today was that they are not going to be putting out any more Red Dead Redemption 2 online, Red Dead Redemption whatever online, Red Dead Online, I forget what they call it.
Yeah.
Content because they're focusing on GTA 6. Great. Like the new stuff should always be, in my opinion, should always be the priority when you're a
Yeah.
studio that only comes out with one game every 5 years. Like get the new goods, get the new hotness, and let's go.
Well,
Let's
and
move
if
from
they
there.
were gonna remaster a game or do something like that anyway, I think in the Rockstar library of games, there's a lot more games that I feel that would get a better reception with that as well. Like, I know people cry for Bully all the time. I think Bully is one of those series where if you haven't played it, it's one of the better franchises they ever came out with. And I know that I think part of the reason why they've never really continued developing that
Mm-hmm.
franchise is just due to the fact that it has to do with bullying people. Um, and maybe that's why it never comes out. But at
Yeah.
the exact same time, there is also like the Manhunt series they had, and I once again, there are games they've made where I feel they could do not a huge, like, I know with the problem with, look, when you look at when you look at Red Dead Redemption and stuff like that, they would have to remake it so well to make, like, they'd have to put a lot of assets into it. I think if companies are going to start remaking their older games that they did long ago, pick games that a lot of people maybe haven't played, like the Warriors they
See,
made, Manhunt,
that's the gamer in
Bully.
you. That's the gamer in you
Yeah,
that wants
but
that.
I
But
mean
like
it.
the
Well, no,
dollar
but I'm
signs
saying,
matter, you know?
yeah, yeah. What I'm saying is those games I feel you could put minimal amount of money into it and you would see a higher return. Whereas the problem I see with doing something like Red Dead Redemption, especially when you have Red Dead 2 already out and underperforming against GTA, it's kind of the same world, just here you go, Western, whatever. But if I feel that if they were to focus on, here's Manhunt remastered, okay, put a minimal amount of resources into it, I feel that depending on if they just put a port that would work on newer gen consoles, I have a feeling that that game could sell and make its money back and more. But once again, yes, with everyone's talking Grand Theft Auto 6. I mean, they've got to put that out because a lot of people are the idea that Grand Theft Auto 5 has almost surpassed Skyrim for being on the most consoles. Uh, they should probably worry about putting that game out for sure.
I think the other thing that could happen with their franchises is perhaps make sequels and then just do a up res
Yeah,
situation where you just improve the frame rate, improve your textures, or just let it upscale. You know, like they're just do a little bit of work so that when your sequel comes out, people can still play the old one and get caught up and that might have missed it, because making a new game without having to worry about the legacy of the old game
yeah.
is way more satisfying for me as a consumer. Like I didn't play Manhunt, but if they made a really cool Manhunt 2, I'd be super intrigued at
They
that.
made Manhunt too.
Or what, you know what I mean? Right. It was
Yeah, the next version of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Manhunt 3, I think. Did they have? No, they only did 2.
No, it only did two.
Yeah. So if they did that, like I would be like, oh, Manhunt seems cool, and then they could say, all right, well, you could play the old Manhunt 1 and 2. You could download it for $20, and it's upscaled
Yeah.
to 4K, 60
Well,
frames a
it's kind of
second,
like
whatever,
kind of like
widescreen.
what EA did with Alice McGee, Alice Madness.
Alice Madness, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, where they
Madness
basically said,
Returns
"Here,
or
you
whatever.
buy the newest version of, and you want to play the original. Here's a version that runs on PS3 and it runs a little bit
Right,
better."
right. It doesn't
Um,
have to reinvent the wheel.
yeah,
Like you don't have to reinvent the wheel for these
no,
games.
and I think if they were gonna do something with their old franchises, I think Rockstar's got enough pull. They should just do like everybody else is doing and go, "Here, other company, take Bully, make it new again," or like
Hmm.
there's a lot of companies like Blue Point and Toys for Bob where there are these companies that are taking games franchises that we do love and giving them the remaster treatment,
Hmm.
and then they're able to make that sequel, right? We saw it with Toys for Bob for sure, where they took Crash, remastered the three games, and in doing that, they felt that they had enough confidence and enough experience with Crash in order to make a completely fourth game, and it did amazing. And so I would love to see maybe Rockstar start giving out their IPs to other
That'll
companies to
never
allow them
happen.
to, well, not like to give
Yeah.
away, but to
I
help
know.
them
They're
work
just
with.
so
But
protective of that stuff. Like
yeah,
they have some of the most like
sought
they
after
play
IPs.
their cards. They're almost worse
Oh
than
yeah,
Nintendo. How they protect their IP. So I don't know. All right. Speaking of old franchises that were able to adapt and be new again, God of War Ragnarok has a
so
release
excited.
date. They have it.
I was so stoked when I saw this at 5 o'clock in the morning when I woke up.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably I know we were hearing all these rumors of that we were going to get it soon of when the date was, and we finally get to see it. We got to see the collector's edition that they're coming out with, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
super excited for that to see that. It's a company that they've decided to make a physical version of it that actually has a collector's edition that people would like to have, and it really shows the pride that they're putting into this game. And
Collector's
I'm super
edition
stoked to see
and
it.
special edition do not have a game disc.
No, that is the one downside. It's interesting that we still get this
We
game,
have the
that we
case.
still get the steel case, but
Yeah.
we get a digital code for the game.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Always confuses me on that side of things, but outside of that, when it comes to the idea that there's like especially with the Yohai edition they came out with, the idea that you're getting like a vinyl and
Mm-hmm.
you're getting that cloth map, like it
The
looks
dice.
really neat, and the
Mimya.
dice,
You get
like
Mimya. Don't forget
yeah,
you get Mimya.
yeah, it just looks cool. It's the idea that, I mean, how long ago, like we haven't seen a collector's edition of that kind of sorts for a very long time.
Well, I
So
have
it's
a special collector's edition that I finally just got. Andy had it for like a year.
yeah,
I got my Panzer Paladin collector's edition, which comes with the physical game. Here it is, Panzer Paladin comes with the physical CDs of the soundtrack, both in composed form and 8-bit form. But I don't have anything that could play CDs. I'm pretty sure. I don't think PS5 can at this point. It also came with this cool, heavy as shit, pewter or whatever paladin, the robot guy. And it also came with the character. I forget her name because it's been a while since I played, but cool edition.
yeah.
It might have had something else too. I don't
But
remember.
it's really neat that we're starting to see
Oh, a poster.
collector's editions come back. I mean, I really miss the days of, you go to the store and you have the choice, and when you were getting those like giant statues and
Mm-hmm.
like miniatures with your collector's edition. Like I still have my back in the GameStop days when Walmart had this weird random clearance of all games that were less, anything that was more than 3 years old got clearance to $1. Like we're talking about BioShock 2 collector's edition was
Mm-hmm.
$1. Like
Mm-hmm.
all these games. So I went and bought all these dollar games, went right to EB Games, which is like half a block away from there, traded everything in, and I ended up getting the Killzone 3 collector's edition, which came with like a ghost figure, a Hellgas helmet that's this giant that you lift the head up, and it's got the art book and the case in there. And like I
Yeah.
really miss having those crazy cool collector's editions, and it's nice to see that they brought it back with doing something like that for sure. And there's a lot of other companies. I still think we should continue to push things like that. Maybe even to the point of have it where, because we're getting digital copies of the game, just bring out collector's editions that don't include the game. Here, you want the Johan edition without the game? Cool. Here, buy it.
Or here's an idea.
Yeah.
You ship an extra copy of the game and
Or
just
that too.
and just shove it in the box. Just be like, hey,
That would work
GameStop,
too.
when you sell the special edition, take one of the other games and give it to them.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Anyway, but with this news of God of War Ragnarok coming out on November 9th this year.
Yeah.
Um,
Came with sad news.
yes. Forspoken got the fuck out of the way.
And it was releasing in October of all things. It's not like it was like, and I can see why, because you know what, when you look at it, it's a brand new franchise versus the sequel, and God of War had such a huge following, and it still even has a bigger following now because of everyone being able to play it on PC. And I mean, as we've seen in the past, it doesn't matter what game, if your game comes out a month or a month after or a month before, any big title, you're better just to move the hell out of the way. And
I also have another theory though, but
January
I want to read.
games.
No, I want to read this thing. So the Forespoken team that they put on Twitter, as a result of ongoing discussions with key partners, we have made the strategic decision to move the launch date of Forespoken to January 24th, 2023. All game elements are now complete, and the development is in its final polishing phase. We would like to thank you for your continued support and patience on this journey. Your excitement for the game inspires us every day, and we cannot wait to share more about Forespoken with you later this summer. Here's my theory. I think that at some point we're going to start hearing little tummy rumbles about Sony purchasing Square Enix.
I wouldn't doubt it in my mind that's something that's happening.
I think that when they say spoke with our partners, they were probably like, hey, we're really behind this game. We want this to be a success. We think you should move it. Because God of War is going to be the game that we're going to put all our marketing dollars on for the holiday season and all of that fun stuff. So like, and they were probably like, you know what? Yeah, we could use the extra couple of months, the extra 56 days or however many it is, to polish this bad boy up. There's also been, to add a little bit of weight to this, and I can't get the article right now because if I click out of the Discord, then your image will go away. But there was also another Square Enix game that was getting put up, like I don't know if it was a remaster.
The Valkyrie Chronicles, the new Valkyrie Chronicles.
Coming to PlayStation.
It's coming right around the same time. Like
it's just weird. There's something I don't know. Maybe it's just the tinfoil hat, which it probably is. But they've always had a really good relationship, especially in the last 2 console cycles. So like, I would not be shocked. Okay, so that's delayed. You know what's not delayed? How quickly 360 games are no longer coming to Xbox with gold, games with gold. That's right, games with gold, which is still a thing. Games with gold is still a thing that should not be a thing. They should just, Game Pass is the thing you should have, whatever. 360 games are being removed coming this October. So there you go. No more 360
From what I understand, they're just removing it from becoming free. I mean, we already knew this was kind of coming when I think it was a couple months ago. They basically made a statement that's saying that it was getting to the point where the amount of effort and time it was taking to put these 360 games to be playable on your newer consoles was taking a lot of their time and effort and money, and they were more willing to put that money somewhere else. And you know what? I think when it comes down to it, with the amount of 360 titles that they currently support, I mean, they got to a point where they were starting to just pick the random bottom of the barrel games anyway, or like these random games that nobody may have not heard of, or some of the ones that were, in my personal opinion, when you think of Xbox and the 360 era, weren't those games. And so I think it's a good idea for them to move this way. Maybe that's where, like I say, Microsoft might start going the route of more remasters like PlayStation, bringing those classic games that everybody wants.
Well, when they don't,
to the forefront, right?
yeah, and when they skip out on 360 games, they usually replace it with a Xbox OG game.
Yeah, or something, right?
But no, I mean that's literally what they usually do. Just there to read their quote, just so you know it's understood what this is actually doing. We've reached the limit of our ability to bring Xbox 360 games to the catalog. However, Games with Gold will continue to include exciting Xbox One titles and exclusive savings each month. This will not impact any 360 games that you downloaded before October 2022. Any Xbox 360 titles that you redeem via Games with Gold before that time are yours to keep on your Xbox account, regardless of whether you continue your subscription. So very simple. If you have one already, it's fine. They're just not going to support it with new 360 games for the service. No problem. But let's talk about a new game from Ubisoft. We have a release date for Skull and Bones, the game that I swear was canceled. I feel like this was announced and then it was shown and then it was like, ooh, this is something, and they were like, oh yeah, never mind, JK LOL, we're gonna delay it, and then I don't remember hearing anything about it. But it is coming November 8th on PS5, Series X and S, Stadia, and PC via the Epic Game Store and the Ubisoft Store. It was announced 5 years ago. It began development years before that. It was when Black Flag was big. When this, I was like, what, 2011?
Black Flag that was just before the PS4 came out, because the PS3, it was one of the first games to be able, to be moved from one to the other.
Okay. Its original release date was supposed to be 2018.
Holy cow!
And it was delayed every single year until now. It looks really good. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I loved the naval combat in Black Flag.
Yeah.
And this is dope. Ski potatoes. I'm here for it. Speaking of here for it, let's go to our mailbag, because there was something that was brought to my attention. So I
wanted to mention one thing.
Please mention it.
Some news that people may not know about. If people are excited for deals and things like that,
mega chicken deals.
Prime Day is coming. This year, Amazon Prime is giving away free games for everyone that has Prime Gaming, which is what you get with your Prime subscription anyway. So on July the 12th to July the 13th, they're going to give you 30 free games. In that is included is a lot of indie games, some of which have been on the show before. And then with that, some of the highlights are Grid Legends, Mass Effect Legendary Edition, Need for Speed Heat, and Star Wars Jedi Academy 1 and 2 are all going to be games that you can then get for free, as long as you go into your Prime Gaming on the 12th to the 13th. I just thought I'd mention that, because that is something that I feel that a lot of our viewers should definitely try out and get some free games.
Also, there's an itch.io bundle to support abortion rights that gets you 792 games for $10.
I need to know about this bundle.
Yes, go to itch.io and it'll be on their homepage. It is 792 indie games. And a lot of them, not a lot. I mean, it can't be a lot, but there are many games on there that are good. But here, we do have something that was submitted through our mailbag by our own Missed Enough. And this is now officially going into the hype zone. And all I'm going to do is read the headline.
Okay.
Half-Life remake Black Mesa is getting a remake in the original Half-Life engine. I will repeat. The Half-Life remake, which was called Black Mesa, is getting a remake in the original Half-Life engine. Black Mesa
Interesting.
remade Half-Life in the Source engine, but now modders want to remake Black Mesa in the Gold SRC engine, which of course was the Half-Life engine.
Okay.
That's it. That's all I have. That is the extent of that article I'm going to read.
I was
That is
say,
as far into that article as I feel like going. That's it. Yeah. Just stunning turn of events here in the world of video games. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking of video games, we just spoke about it for 56 minutes. And this is going to bring us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you want to follow us on social media, we're at Duel_Screens. I am at Batchild27. Corey is at The Grounded Gamer, no E-double-D. Taylor's at It's Purger. Matt is at Missed Enough. Andy's at Pants Guy. And more importantly, we announced, finally, that we are doing our own indie game showcase. Ladies and gentlemen, mark your calendars. Go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/DualScreensTV. Subscribe right now, because on August 17th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, we are doing what we are calling another indie game showcase, where we're going to have close to 40 games that are going to be shown from our partners over the course of these last 4 years that we've made. And we are going to be revealing at least 2 games confirmed. Revealing. First time ever to the world. Most games are not, I would say 99% of them are not out yet. There is information about them, but they're all going to get new information, new trailers, release dates, and these are commas, by the way, they're not all getting all of this. I'm putting commas here, folks. They're getting either a release date or release window, an early access release, a demo release. Something new is going to come to every one of these games. And let me tell you something, Corey.
Yep.
Every hour, at least, since we've tweeted this, we have gotten a new submission for this. A new developer wanting to submit.
It really goes to show that, like, for people that don't know, Steve and Andy got to talk with the Greg Miller about, like, really just have a chat with him. And one of the things that came from the show, and if you haven't watched it, we've got it linked in our channel there. The one big thing is, he said himself, like, what we do here and what Steve and Andy have started is something that no one else really does better or does in general. They, we bring hype to the games that no one else does. And this is something where it's crazy I remember when we first started talking about the show and stuff like that, it started out as like, oh, we got 12 people. Then we got 15 people. Then we had 20.
It wasn't even that. Like, we were saying, if we can get 12.
Yeah, I think that was the thing, right?
Yeah, we're like, if we get 12, we might be able to get 8 to actually submit. Like, if 12 people say yes, we have to expect, like, a good percentage are just not going to make the deadline. And we could have, like, 8 games. We can make it like a 10-minute video. Now we're looking at like a 40-minute minimum. Showcase.
It's insane. And like I say, it's really crazy. Like I say, I've known you guys for so long. I mean, I've been part of the channel for almost a year now, coming up on a year quickly here on the next month. And it's crazy of how much in this last year, and especially this last 6 months, it's just exploded for us. And it's really cool to see. And it's going to be amazing to see this show come out and, like, be part of it and be able to, like, give it to the people and really show some great, amazing games for sure.
And listeners, and viewers, if you are an artist or, you have any sort of talents that you might be able to provide Dual Screens in creating this, I am going to be in charge of the production of it. So I'm going to be editing, I'm directing it, I'm producing it, I'm writing it. All of that is falling on my shoulders. So if you have a skill that you can lend, hit me up on Twitter. Again, it's at Batchild27. You could DM me. You let me know what your skill set is, and I'll see if I can work something out with you. All right, folks, that is going to do it for us. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, viewers. Thank you to the video game hearts because video games are the best. And as always, please be excellent to Taylar when he returns. And each other.
Okay.
And don't forget...
And stay grounded.
To... Yeah, what he said.